This is Ghulam Ali Khan painting the young Zafar. 30 years later, the same patron painting the older man. This is Mazhar Ali Khan, the nephew of Ghulam Ali Khan, the last great Mughal painter, shown painting with his pen on his knees. And here is the last great commission that Mazhar Ali Khan goes about, which is the panorama of Delhi in the India Office Library, 30 foot long, showing the city in all its Mughal glory. Now, what's so tragic about this painting is that it's painted in 1852, and only 5 years after this is painted, all this is bulldozed, blown up, and destroyed as retribution. Every single building within the Red Fort is blown up and leveled. So this is a painting in 1852 of a world on the verge of complete destruction. And the whole thing, as I say, comes to head with these blessed cartridges. On the 10th of May, 1857, they are issued to the sepoys in Meerut. Half the troops refuse to bite the bullet. Literally, they have to bite this cartridge and shove it down the barrels. They refuse to do this. Those troops are sentenced to 30 years hard labor for their refusal. And so obviously unjust is this sentence for these men who fought bravely in Afghanistan and Burma and Assam and what have you against the Marathas, that their fellows rise up and liberate them from the jails that evening, then turn on their officers and shoot them dead. Then they ride through the night to Delhi. Zafar is looking out on the morning of May the 11th, 1857, over the bridge of boats. He sees a cloud of dust rising on the far shore. And this is the first of the Mughal cavalry charging into Delhi from Meerut, having ridden through the night. They ride into Delhi and they begin their massacre. They begin to slaughter not only every British civilian, man, woman, or child they can find, they also attack any local Indian Christian. And this immediately assumes the character of a war of religion, at least in its rhetoric. Although many of the grievances are thoroughly secular, British imports of textiles, British interference with various kingdoms in North India, changing the patterns of landholding, and so on and so forth, the rhetoric of the revolution takes place immediately in the religious sphere. And the first proclamations of the rebel talk about a battle against the Nazrani, the Christians, not the Ferengis, not the foreigners, not the Angres, not the British, not the Sarkar, the government, but instead the Nazrani. And the Hindus and Muslims joined together in the proclamations to try and raise the Mughal emperor back onto the throne. Now Zafar, who was the perfect, wonderful, mystic poet, perfect to lead a literary renaissance in Delhi, could not have been less well suited to leading an anti-colonial uprising. He's 82 years old. He's a sweet old codger, but he's certainly no insurgent, no Che Guevara ready to mount the barricades. And this is immediately a problem. He accepts the mantle of rebellion only grudgingly. This doesn't, however, stop the rebellion spreading with incredible speed, indicating the scale of the discontent. Within 6 weeks of the 11th of May, of the 164,000 sepoys in the Bengal army, 139,000 have risen up in rebellion against the company. In other words, only about 30,000 that remain loyal. These are troops that have fought without question all over India for the last 200 years. Within 6 weeks, the whole lot of them, bar 30,000, have gone over to the rebels. And these troops march almost unswervingly to Delhi. Those in the audience that learnt their 1857 history in Indian schools will have heard a great deal about Mangal Pandi in Barakpur. They'll have heard a great deal about Rani Jhansi in Jhansi. These figures almost do not appear in the voluminous mutiny papers in Delhi. Of the 139,000 troops who rebelled against the British in 1857, 100,000 went straight to Delhi and tried to put the Mughal emperor back on the throne. This is the untold story, the Indian side. Those who learned their 1857 history in British schools will have been told this was exclusively a mutiny of ungrateful sepoys. Again, complete rubbish. Almost the entire North Indian Gangetic Plain rose up as one against the British, with the exception of a few of the elite in Delhi. So this is an uprising, doesn't spread across the whole of India, but it spreads across the entire Gangetic Plain, supported by almost all the British trained soldiery, many of the landowners in North India, many of the textile workers, and the small, as an urban revolution in town after town. And this thing spreads with incredible speed, and it's centered on Delhi. And what's amazing, again, considering the history of conflict between Hindu and Muslim, which develops in the late 19th century and reached its peak, I suppose, at partition in 1947, is that the mutineers who come to Delhi are there to put the Mughal emperor, a Muslim emperor, back on the throne, and those troops are 85% upper caste Hindus, Brahmins and Rajputs. So any notion that there was in 1992, when the mosque in Ayodhya was destroyed, that the Mughal emperors were always perceived as oppressors, is immediately disproved by the reality of the take-up of this rebellion and the fact that 100,000 largely Hindu sepoys converge on Delhi under the standard of Zafar. Because Zafar is seen as the legitimate ruler of North India, the natural rallying point against the colonial forces. But it is in the very success of the uprising and the universality of the collecting point at Delhi as the destination of the rebel troops that things begin to go wrong. Because Zafar is very good at organizing poetry evenings, but he hasn't got any of the machinery for feeding 100,000 troops that turn up, less still arming them and organizing them. So the different rebel regiments that rebel come under their own subadars, who refuse to obey any other subadars. So it's like a whole series of warlords arriving in Delhi, each with their own independent army, none of whom will accept any authority. And even Zafar's control of the military is always pretty tenuous. Occasionally he threatens to go and resign, to go and retire to Mecca, and this momentarily produces unity among the troops and the rebels. But it's too disordered. The violence which has started never ceases. The soldiers prey on the people of Delhi. When they're not fed, they go and break into the moneylenders' houses, they go and raid the bazaars, and the whole thing breaks down pretty quickly into chaos. And with the chaos, there comes a rural brigandage and dacoity on the roads, which means that the farmers can't bring the food into Delhi, as the roads are too dangerous. Armed men can travel down the roads and do travel, and you have sepoys still turning up as late as August from distant stations in Rajasthan and eastern UP. But you can't have farmers just bringing in food. So if you look in the mutiny papers in the National Archives, you find these petitions from ordinary farmers. Rustam Khan, a horse seller in Sona in Haryana, sets off in June 1857 to sell 3 mares in Delhi, hoping he'll get a huge premium on his sale, knowing that the cavalry will want more horses. He arrives in Delhi, he sells 2 of his horses at a huge profit, thoroughly pleased with himself, is heading back home, when near Chatterpur, a bunch of Gujars jump out of a hedge, take his remaining horse, take his money, take his clothes. So the following day he has to present himself before Zafar, asking for food and money. And there are millions of petitions like this. So what you get over a period of 2 months is hugely increased demand in Delhi and dramatically reduced supplies. The farmers aren't coming in because they can't. So what you get, of course, in that situation is hyperinflation. The price of basic foodstuffs, dal, rice, chickpeas, chana, all these things go shooting through the roof. And first it's the poor who starve, then the middle class, and finally it's the troops themselves. Many of them have brought supplies that keep them going during June and even a bit of July. But by July, the troops in the city, the 100,000 sepoys who gathered in this rebellion and who have yet to have a crack at the English, are starving. My lord, this is the submission of the Nimach force. We arrived in the capital after traversing a great distance and overcoming many obstacles with the expectation of serving your imperial majesty. And till now your obedient servants have themselves been paying our expenses.